My name is Kaidra Larson, and this is my persuasive speech. Performance-enhancing drugs have become a problem with athletes over the past few decades. There are several ways to use drugs or chemicals to enhance athletes' performances, but with it come risks and consequences, and athletes should ultimately abstain from using these drugs. Over the years, I have watched professional athletes receive punishments and poor health conditions for using drugs to enhance their sports performances, along with the information I have gathered through research. Becoming more educated with the pros and cons of the use of performance-enhancing drugs will allow people to play at their chosen rate, preferably not using these drugs. I'm going to share with you the facts and information I have learned about the use of performance-enhancing drugs by athletes in sports. PEDs are drugs used to boost players' abilities to perform well, to prevent injuries, and to improve chances of coming back from the injuries. Yet it also brings risks and consequences to their health and careers. Athletes should refrain from using these drugs. Performance-enhancing drugs ultimately heighten the level of play for athletes. Athletes' functions, speed, and strength are all enhanced by these drugs or chemicals that are consumed. There are several types of doping, including the illegal uses of performance drugs. One of these is anabolic steroids, which is a testosterone drug. It can be taken orally, injected, or used as a gel or cream. It lowers body fat, increases muscle mass, and makes stronger bones. It also helps players recover from a hard workout faster, which prevents overtraining. Stimulants like amphetamines and caffeine, such as energy drinks, are a psychoactive drug, and it promotes aggressiveness. It helps players be more aware and alert. It stimulates the central nervous system and increases the heart rate and blood pressure. The human growth hormone is a prescription medication. It helps with muscle mass and injury resistance. There are also supplements that can be taken. There are also non-illegal uses, though, that are labeled as dietary supplements, like vitamins, minerals, proteins, and amino acids. Why do athletes use performance-enhancing drugs? They use these because they want to play at the best they can to their ability, not their natural ability, to the ability that they can abstain from these drugs. Some athletes get injured during their careers and rely on these drugs to come back sooner and sometimes stronger than before. Other athletes use PEDs to play at a higher level of competition. Lance Armstrong was a Tour de France cyclist. He admitted to using EPO, testosterone, cortisone, human growth hormone, and illegal blood transfusions. His 7 Tour de France titles were taken from him. He said that it was impossible to win the Tour de France without cheating, and he really wanted to win. Mark McGwire played in Major League Baseball. He had a title for the most home runs hit in the season. He confessed to using steroids and human growth hormone. He also had several injuries and began using these drugs to help him recover faster and prevent future injuries. Ben Johnson was an Olympic track star. He was stripped of his gold medal in 1988, and it destroyed his career and his reputation. Consequences of these drugs are huge. There are so many of them. There are health risks that come from the abnormal uses of these drugs and chemicals, such as it stunts the growth in adolescence. It can lead to liver damage, acne, cardiovascular effects, emotional instability, dehydration, and addiction. Athletes also run the risk of being suspended for the illegal use of drugs benefiting their performances. They can be fined, they can miss out on a few games, and during that time somebody else has got to play in their spot, and they could lose their spot forever. They could even lose their jobs. Some people argue that there is nothing wrong with using PEDs for sports. They say that it makes the game more interesting. They say players have this ability to do whatever they want and nothing can stop them, and they are just so strong and so physically in the zone that they're unstoppable. They say that players can make the choice themselves if they know the risks. And that's true, everybody should be able to make their own decision, but the risks in this case are so high. There are so many risks that can be taken. I can't even list them all. That there's so many little minor things and things that can lead to other things, and ultimately you might not live to see everything that you can do, all the awards that you can get. Banning drugs, they say, is discriminatory against athletes. But there are also several arguments against using these doping drugs. Like, using these drugs for sports is unethical, I believe. Why would you use your God-given ability, which has already surpassed all the other players, and you use these drugs to make yourself that much better, to selfishly be the highest that there is? I don't believe that is how people should live, that people should be able to use these drugs. I think that it's an unfair advantage to all the other players if you use PEDs, that if two people of the same ability are going for a spot and one of them resorts to using PEDs and they get the spot, it is totally unfair to the other person who works just as hard. I think that the risk of health issues is more important than excelling in athletic performances. In conclusion, performance-enhancing drugs benefit players' ability to perform well, but with this for success come risks and consequences that can hurt players' health and careers. Using PEDs is a health risk that should not be taken by athletes or any person, for it more than likely will result in complications sometime in life. As more and more sports competitors resort to drugs, there is a high risk of negative consequences over positive outcomes. PEDs are drugs used to boost players' abilities to perform well, but there is also injuries that can be prevented, and it can increase their chances of coming back from an injury. Yet the use of these drugs is unethical, and players should not be allowed access.